One of our teachers, Shaykh Ṣafwān, would always mention that the first teacher is the most important. Because the first teacher is that teacher who will either make the student love the science or he'll make the student hate that science. The purpose of this dawra ilmiya, this intensive, is not just to review, or it's not just for the sake of encouragement. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa ba'd. I hope everyone is doing well. Alhamdulillah, we're very excited to announce the launch of our first summer intensive at Talweeh Academy, which will be beginning in just a few weeks on the 22nd of July in 2026, bi'idhnillah. And we'll be covering a total of 4 sciences, or 3 sciences to be exact: the science of Hadith, the science of Manṭiq, and the science of Aqīdah, at a basic level for beginners, but in a manner where we create your foundations and we instill the love of these sciences in your heart. Now in Hadith, we'll be focusing both on Mustalaḥ as well as Sharḥ al-Ḥadīth. The course will span over 6 weeks. And the reasoning behind this, it comes back to a point I mentioned to you earlier, that the purpose of this dawra ilmiya, this intensive, is not just to review, or it's not just for the sake of encouragement. Yes, those are purposes. And generally speaking, when you look at dawrat ilmiya or intensives, you'll find that you have 1-day intensives, 2-day intensives, 5-day intensives, 10-day intensives, all with different purposes. Generally speaking, the purpose over there is review for those students that have already covered those sciences. And for students that have yet to cover those sciences, the purpose is encouragement. It's not necessarily to teach the science, but it's to encourage that student to further study that science. Whether it's a 1-day dawra, whether it's a 2-day dawra, whether it's a 5 or 10-day dawra. Our dawra, our summer intensive, is actually a 6-week summer intensive. And we'll have class 4 days a week, bi'idhnillah, over a course of 6 weeks. And the reasoning behind this is that we don't want to simply review or encourage students to study. We want to teach and to instill the fundamentals and the foundations of each science into the minds and the hearts of the students, bi'idhnillah. In order to do so, we need time, because one is understanding information, then there's digesting information, then there's being able to recognize that information, and then there's being able to apply that information. And each level has a different technique and it has a different method in which it is taught. So over here, bi'idhnillah, the purpose is to teach Mustalaḥ, Hadith, Aqīdah, and Manṭiq at a basic level, so as to ensure that the student is grounded in these sciences. And when we say grounded, obviously we want to create tamakkun by referring back to the commentaries, referring back to the other books written in that science, referring back to larger books written in that science, creating familiarity with the books in that science for each and every single student. And for this reason, we have made the course both online and in person. So those students that are able to come to Talweeh Academy, they're obviously welcome over here, bi'idhnillah. They can send us an email when they apply, and they will be welcomed, bi'idhnillah, over here, because there are many books over here that we want to show to the students as well, in order to create love for our science. One of our teachers, Shaykh Ṣafwān, would always mention that the first teacher is the most important. Because the first teacher is that teacher who will either make the student love the science or he'll make the student hate that science. And that will decide his path from there on. If the student loves the science, he will continue studying, he will continue progressing in that science. But if the student comes to hate that science for one reason or another, he will try his best to avoid that science in the future. Whether it's nahu, whether it's hadith, whether it's hadith referring to mustalah, whether it's fiqh, whether it's tafsir, etc., etc. So it's just a matter of wanting students to continue studying, number one. And number two, the first teacher is a teacher who creates tamakkun. He is a teacher who creates an overview of that science. He creates the fundamentals and the foundations upon which a student can build. Because if you have strong foundations, it's very easy to build multiple stories on top of that. If the foundations themselves are weak and they will crumble, then you will not be able to build anything upon those foundations. Likewise, in these sciences, if the foundation is made and the foundation is strong, the general overview of the science, the rationale behind these sciences, behind each and every single mustalah and point in these sciences is understood, then it becomes easy for a student to progress in that science and to build upon that base and that foundation. On the other hand, if a student does not understand these sciences as they ought to be understood at the first level, then oftentimes, if he continues studying, which we hope for everyone, it's only much later that they begin to understand exactly how the science works, perhaps in the 3rd or 4th or 5th stage. We want our students to be given that from the first stage, obviously at the basic level, enough information that they're able to digest, and it's not overwhelming, yet at the same time, enough information so as to open their minds with regards to these sciences. So bi'idhnillah, we'll be covering 4 sciences. In Mustalaḥ, we'll be covering Manẓūmah al-Bayqūnī, the 34-line poem on Mustalaḥ al-Hadith. In Hadith, we'll be covering al-Arbaʿūn al-Nawawiyyah, Imam Nawawi's famous 42 Ahadith, which gathered the fundamentals of the religion. In Aqīdah, we'll be covering Shaykh Ṣafwān, Dawoodi, our teachers, Aqīdat Ahl Sunnah, and in Manṭiq, we will provide a curriculum and a book for the students, bi'idhnillah, Manṭiq 101, in which we gather and we summarize the entirety of that science, just like we will do for Mustalaḥ, just like we'll do for al-Arbaʿūn al-Nawawiyyah, and just like we'll do bi'idhnillah for al-Aqīdah. As always, we hope everyone is doing well, and we hope to see you here soon. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.